In fact, many Chinese officials I've met know of two American states, California and Vermont, and they're under the impression that they're roughly equal in size and importance. And I never let on, all right? But that's a powerful example of what we have done already as Vermonters and what we can do. So let's talk about next steps. Clearly, building on the Efficiency Vermont model is key. This session, you'll have a chance to build an equally robust program aimed at thermal efficiency, which is an awkward name. Another way of saying it is, it's high time that Vermonters stopped heating the outdoors. Putting in insulation will create jobs, and it will save low and middle income Vermonters serious money. It's obvious good policy even absent the climate crisis. And I hope that you'll make it a priority, that you'll pay for it in a logical way, and that you'll keep pushing it hard till every building in the state is up to snuff. Because, given the climate crisis, one of the things we most need to do is reduce our use of energy. The more we reduce it, the easier it becomes to begin meeting our needs with electricity, especially renewable electricity. If we get really tight houses, then our options improve for what we can do to heat and cool them. Renewable electricity is the only chance that we have moving forward, and increasingly, it's a good chance. We look at countries like Germany, where there were days this past summer when Germany generated more than half the power it used from solar panels within its own borders. Okay? A University of Delaware study released this month demonstrated that by running 28 billion computer simulations of different weather conditions, by 2030, our country could provide reliable electricity from renewables 99.9% of the time at a reasonable cost. But only if we simultaneously practice efficiency and build out that renewable network fast. Governor Shumlin, skilled civil servants like Liz Miller and Deb Markowitz, this legislative body, you guys have pointed us in just the right direction. We need 90% or more of our power from renewable sources, and I fear the science indicates we need it even faster than you've called to make it happen. This is an emergency. Which brings me to the controversy of the moment, the call for a 3-year moratorium on wind power development in this state. It's not perhaps the most important issue, but it is the most contentious. So let me address it with just a little care. I am glad that there are people standing up for our mountains and for the rest of creation that inhabits them. It is good to see that the environmental message has sunk deep roots. I yield to no man or woman in my affection for the high forests of this region. I've explored them, I've written about them extensively, and I've done my best to help the legion organizations dedicated to their preservation. But I also read the science carefully, and am thoroughly convinced that by far the greatest threat to their integrity, their biology, and their beauty is the onset of rapid climate change. The scientific community is in agreement that as we heat the Earth, we stand on the brink of triggering Earth's 6th great extinction event, one that will decimate species everywhere, including here. The computer modeling shows a dramatically warmer world won't support the birch, beech, maple forest that we love in Vermont, and that the hemlock will be driven north of the Canadian border. In other words, the future of our mountains depends on our ability to get ahead of the global warming crisis. So let me say that if anything in my description of that crisis so far leaves you thinking that we have 3 years to spare for a timeout, then I've done a poor job indeed. We need to be doing all we can on every front and with real purpose and dispatch. I completely agree with our junior senator, Mr. Sanders, who on Monday blasted the idea of a moratorium. Among other things, this state leads the nation in green jobs per capita. What kind of signal are you going to send to the one set of businesses really ramping up in Vermont? I find it truly hard to imagine that even after the U.S. House of Representatives, as backward at the moment a legislative body as I think we've seen in our nation's history, managed to extend the incentives for wind production, this forward-looking body will go in the other direction. It is important to try and choose sites wisely. It is important to try and choose sites wisely, and it would be good public policy to figure out, using models like Germany and Denmark, how to share the financial benefits of these installations widely among the people who live among them. That's simply good lawmaking, a challenge to which you are entirely equal. But I recall last year when the leading opponents of big wind in Vermont told 7 Days things like, quote, they are making climate change victims of the people who live around the projects, unquote, and that it was akin to, quote, burning villages in order to save them, unquote. Let me say that I think such statements are incorrect. Climate change victims are, say, the 150,000 people displaced from their homes on Monday in chaotic flooding in Mozambique. Ask, even a hero like Sue Minter, how we'd begin to deal with 150,000 people displaced, 1/4 of Vermont. It would be beyond even her skills. Burning villages can actually be found in places like Tasmania, or for that matter, Colorado, where record wildfires in the last year have taken lives and wrecked communities. So I think we should plan carefully but quickly to minimize the ecological footprint and maximize the energy gain. That energy gain is real. Every spin of that windmill blade reduces the need somewhere for burning coal or gas or oil. In New England, first of all, where we still have lots of fossil-powered electricity being generated. But it also reduces by some small amount the pressure on a Bangladeshi peasant farmer or a doctor someplace in the tropics fighting the spread of dengue fever. We do not need them, as I say, on every ridgeline, but I continue to hope for the day when I will see them above my house on the top of Middlebury Gap, turning with slow and stately beauty, the breeze made visible, and the future illuminated. I do concede the opponents of wind power one very important point. They have said correctly that this is not a silver bullet, and they are absolutely right. We've had our magic fuel. Coal and gas and oil and good stuff, extremely useful. It's too bad that the carbon they release is destroying the earth. There are no silver bullets. Maybe, however, there is enough silver buckshot if we are diligent about picking up every last piece and deploying every tool. We have to make sure the steps that we take will actually help. The carbon numbers, say, for industrial biomass don't look very promising. But there are literally dozens of other things we could be doing. To wit, transportation policy should look towards electrification just like other sectors. I'm now driving around in my brand new Ford C-Max plug-in hybrid from Heritage Ford. Okay? It gets its first 25 miles off its electric motor before the gas engine kicks in. So for many of us in Vermont, that's a day's commute. Since I have solar panels on the roof of my house, I could drive it, say, from Ripton to Middlesex off the sun each day. Right? We need incentives to make sure that same minor miracle can happen in many driveways and many parking lots. And of course, we also need a full-on commitment to public transit. The actor buses plying our roads. Buses flying our roads in Addison County are a good daily reminder of the possibility. And of course, everyone on my side of the state eagerly awaits the renewed passenger train service over there. But just as it makes little sense to produce clean power for leaky houses, so it makes little sense to make Vermont more car dependent. To borrow a phrase from the governor, building big box stores in farm fields is a terrible idea. In essence, these places are global warming machines. They feed precisely the sprawl that will doom our larger efforts in the long run. They're the classic example of short-term thinking, when any real thought about our future sees a very different Vermont that could be forming. One that leads the nation in local food, whose intact and thriving towns and cities are a reminder to people in other places how pleasant life could be. All of that I've described involves offense, playing offense, the fun stuff, building things, helping people. We also need to play some defense if we're going to hold off the staggering rise in temperature. We have to keep some carbon in the ground.